Hello and welcome to the Metapod podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. And my name is Jake. This is Sean over to my right. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm good, Jake. I had a very chill weekend. I did not have a billion different sports things to have to manage, unlike you, from what I heard.
I put probably like between Saturday and Sunday. So for the one person that does the job that I do that listens to this podcast, first of all, shout out to you. You know how much this sucks. But I had five different sports competing at the same time on our campus, and part of my job is to staff it all. So like that was a nightmare to try to get going, but it all went swimmingly. It all went really well. I mean, part of the problem was we hosted, championship basketball tournament, basketball, being this huge deal, but it went really well. I think I do good at my job. So
yeah,
I'm glad, there's that. But there was a lot of stuff that happened in terms of Pokemon cards. Sean, did you happen to watch either Bochum or Knoxville?
I watched a couple of rounds of Knoxville randomly. So I did watch. I watched one of Piper LaPine's rounds. She did a great job.
Yeah, Piper.
Round.
I mean, we were talking about it the other week. Piper, an insane player this season, and definitely showed up to Knoxville after we didn't put her in our top five right now. And definitely showed us up.
I will say also, Andrew, the person who won, showed up and managed to win back-to-back regionals, which was
exactly.
He probably, I don't know if he listens to the pod, but if he does, he's probably sitting here like, instead of get my name out of your mouth, put my name in your mouth. Where was I?
Exactly. So, we're going to talk about Andrew today, but we got a lot of stuff to talk about here with the Pokemon trading card game, whether it is the competitive scene or new products releasing, because some big new stuff was announced, I should say, and will be coming soon. But first, Sean.
Yeah.
We're not going to necessarily do a 5-star review this week. We're going to twist it up a little bit. We're going to go to
5-star recommendation. How about that?
Yeah, 5-star recommendation. This was left on episode 130, so 2 weeks ago, the podcast episode. This is from Jonah Hartland on the Game Boy Color Pokemon TCG game. That was a topic that we've been discussing about for the last 2 weeks, coming on the Nintendo Switch. Listen to those podcasts to get more about it. They said, I've played a whole lot of it emulated on the DS, and it does look pretty good. It's got a nice charm. The card set is really fun to build, although, the trainers, not necessarily the best decks overall, so you can outclass them at some points. It's definitely a great game to learn how the TCG works. So there's a great recommendation for you if you want to, get excited about the Game Boy Color games that are coming on to the Nintendo Switch. I'm going to keep hyping it up because I love those games, and I wish we would have gotten the sequel with it because they're just a lot of fun. So, but we've talked about them.
We have, but I will say, I know we'll get into the next topic, which is that Pokemon Presents happened this morning as of our recording.
It did.
Which, for the first time ever, Pokemon Company has heard our pleas and has put a big announcement, all their announcements on a Monday morning, not on a Tuesday.
Today was also Pokemon Day. We're recording on Monday nights usually for people who may not know.
We're recording on Pokemon Day.
Yeah, we're recording on Pokemon Day, Sean.
Jake, we are the most Pokemon podcast.
We are, and this Pokemon podcast revolves around the Pokemon meta of the Pokemon world and the Pokemon universe of the Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Pokemon, yes. That you're not really, Sean, we're not boomer because we don't say Pokemon.
Well,
once we say Pokemon.
No, but we're old enough to Pokemon go to the polls. So there we go.
We really are. And if you want to go to Worlds 2023, like Sean is, Sean will be over
I won't be at Worlds.
I thought you said you'll be at Worlds.
I'll be in Japan, but I won't be at Worlds because Worlds is in August. I'm in Japan well before.
Petition to have Sean go to Pokemon
back
Worlds.
To Japan. Yeah.
Anyways, Pokemon Worlds 2023 will be taking place in Yokohama, Japan, for anyone who does not know. And the official dates of the Pokemon World Championships were announced. We've known the location for a while, but now you can start setting up your flight, things like that. It's going from August 11th to the 13th. So mark your calendars.
Yep.
That's interesting. 11th through 13th. I feel like a lot of people were saying like it was going to be a little bit later than that.
I think typically Worlds, if I'm remembering correctly, it's usually been at like the mid to end
Like
of
the
August.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say usually the end. I don't know if this has any relation to like the academic year, for
You
Japan
know,
or something like that.
I'm gonna look it up. Japanese school year 2023-2024.
I know at least in anime, right? They
Yeah.
only like summer is only a month, so like they have school kind of a little bit longer in their or I'm sorry, they have school at different portions than we usually do.
I don't know. It looks like maybe it starts. No, new family orientation day does start on August 17th. So the 13th would be here. The 17th is the following Thursday. Jake, you might be onto something. That might have actually been why it is like a week or two earlier than typical. Because in the West, at least in America, most school starts after what is it, Labor Day?
Well, I feel like it's at least in Indiana where I grew
Yeah.
up, school started like early August, but in college, school started in September,
Oh, right, right. Yeah, yeah.
you know. And I think most colleges have that school start of like September, or at least the ones that I've like worked and attended
Yeah.
at.
That's a good call, though. I like that. And I will say, Jake, that is currently I'm 1 for 1 on Pokemon Presents predictions. Do you remember my 3 predictions?
No, to be honest, I've had a really long week. You're
All
gonna have
right.
to
All right.
remind me.
There were three things that I predicted, and we'll see if they come true. The first one was that they would announce the dates of Pokemon Worlds, because it just makes
Mhm.
sense. The second was they would announce DLC for Scarlet and Violet.
That's true. Yes. And they did announce that. We're not
Oh
necessarily
no.
going to cover the news, but just to let you know, for anyone listening out there, they did announce the DLCs and you should go watch the trailer and whatnot.
Yes. And the third, which they didn't do, which is related to the Game Boy Color game, which is I thought they were going to announce a date for the release of the trading card game, revamp or whatever on the Switch, which they didn't do. But Jake, they did announce a throwback something. What was that?
They did. They announced a new premium box set. It's going to be releasing in late 2023 in English, October 2023 in Japan. So they'll get it a couple months early. Japan will get it a couple months earlier than the rest of the world. It's called the Pokemon Trading Card Game Classic. It was part of the Nintendo Direct. It's going to come with 360 card decks. So you get 3 kind of like pre-made decks, similar to when you buy the Battle League decks, theme decks, things of that nature. It's going to be headlined by 3 cards. These decks are headlined by 3 different cards: base set Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise. Very, very cool. We had what was that, Celebrations, that had those 3 cards, and in Japan they had the Legendary Collection, but now they're going to be doing another series of these cards releases. But the cool thing about these decks, it's going to contain a series of new and reprinted cards. So even though your decks are going to be headlined by Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise from base set, that doesn't mean like a EX of some sort or a Professor's Research won't be in there. Quick Ball stuff that wasn't in that like base set to fossil era, if that makes sense. There's also several other cards that they show along in here: Lugia EX, Suicune EX, those cards, and a couple other throwbacks. And another one which I remember reading about what this like teardrop looking card was, this new trainer card, which you can actually scroll down to it. There's a couple different versions of these cards. They're like little
They're
what am
tools.
I trying to think of? Tools. Yes, the new tool variants of this, and they each have to relate to the starter. So essentially, these tool cards, these new tool cards, there's 3 of them: grass, fire, and water. The attacks of the Venusaur this card is attached to do 100 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Obviously, that's the Venusaur specific one. There's also a fire one for the Charizard, and there's a water one for the Blastoise.
Yep. Very interesting.
It's kind of cool because it looks like in things like that, and a bunch of counters and stuff. So it's like you're building like a stadium, right? It's like you buy an entire stadium.
Oh, you're talking about like, yeah. So you cut out for a second there, Jake, but yeah, like the product that you get, it's got like a really premium, like I don't know if it's the box or whatever. It turns into like a premium looking playmat, basically 2-person playmat.
Not even a playmat.
No, but it's like actually
it's like raised. Yeah,
it's like off
like
of
a
the
platform.
table. It's like a platform. Yeah. That's a
it
better
probably
word for
folds
it.
in half or something.
Like kind of like those chess sets that you can like fold out.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a bigger version of that. And it also comes with these really interesting damage markers. So they're like,
they're cones.
Yeah, they're like stackable cones, which I'm like, all right, that's actually kind of neat. Like, I want to see somebody rock these at an actual regional, just like the damage cones.
Exactly.
Instead of dice.
I mean, and then the poison and burn markers, they're like little rings that have ridges and stuff in them. I mean, the whole thing is just super fancy, and it's really, really cool that they released something like this.
I will say the other thing that's kind of weird about this though is like these decks that they're giving you, right? They're pre-constructed, and I will say everything in the deck except for the energy cards is not tournament legal. It's not standard legal.
Yes, I saw that in the like little trailer. They showed up a screen that said that they are not tournament legal, with the exception of the basic energies, which is a shame. But
yeah,
I mean, Celebrations was like that same thing.
It was. Although the weird thing about Celebrations relative to this, right, is like you do get some like interesting EXs that like, who knows? Are they going to maybe reprint these in a main set, or are these just like EXs that just happen to exist and they're just never standard legal? To be honest, none of them are particularly good. I think personally the best one is the Suicune because it has an unlimited damage cap. But
what's the attack, Sean?
So the attack on it does 60 plus, and then the plus is 30 more damage for each water energy attached. So 3 colorless, but if you got 3 water energy, you're doing 150. But the fact that you have a basic Pokemon that could do an unlimited output, and it also has free retreat so long as it has water energy attached to it, which is like, okay, it's interesting. Like, it's an interesting card, but probably not great. But I just think it's strange that they're printing EXs that are like technically would make sense in the current format because they're EXs.
Yeah, I mean, they did made well, even in Celebrations there was like the Charizard and Lance, the Sylveon,
you're right. The Dark Sylveon, yeah, Blaine's or Lance's Charizard or something, yeah.
I don't think Lance's Charizard was legal either.
No, I think you're right, and the Dark Sylveon wasn't legal.
No, so I mean, at least it's consistent, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The other thing that's weird is like the tool cards being not legal. And I think they clearly designed these because they realized, we want to have the old school cards, but it's not fair to put them up against new school EXs. So let's give their attacks a little boost. Let's give them all 100 extra damage. And I do think it's interesting that they've chosen to stick with the modern Pokemon tool design of like the card around it. Because they've labeled this Pokemon tool, but like I'd be surprised if there was anything in the deck that refers to Pokemon tools separately. Because they have old cards like this, computer search, which lets you discard 2 cards and go get any card from your deck. So like they clearly are mixing and matching old school and new school cards and rules, etc. So I don't know. Just interesting. Just a really weird, interesting product. And actually, they do have a cost for Japan. It's about $275, 35,000 yen. So who knows what that'll actually be when it comes to the West, but like it wouldn't surprise me if it was about the same price. Like if it's actually the same product, like it's like an ultra premium collection product that $300. If so many of the cards inside of it are a special holofoil pattern, yeah, makes perfect sense.
I would say, I mean, it's even a cool product just in terms of the actual like quote unquote stadium, like the field itself, you know, the foldable field and
Yeah.
the damage counters and stuff, like all that, in my opinion, is like worth getting. Yeah, you get the promos and the decks. You know, you can teach a friend, teach a partner, teach a kid, you know, how to play the game through those. I mean, I'm gonna try to get one of these.
That's all right. Rock and roll. I want to see you rocking these damage counters though
Oh
in
my
a real
gosh, yeah.
tournament. That's a flex. That's a flex right there, Jake.
Show Worlds 2024. Jake comes in with that.
I want to see you. I don't know if you caught this in the presentation, but that the way the point of the ball in the middle is you're
I was
supposed
gonna ask what that was.
so that is to replace the rolling for heads or tails. So the way that you do that is you roll the ball. If it goes in the ones with the white arc on the side, it's a heads, and if it goes in the other two, it's tails.
Oh, I see the little metal ball that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
You're gonna say weird. It's weird, Jake. That's kind of weird.
I mean, it's just way different than like anything you'll ever do, like playing,
Yeah.
like whether it's a pre-release or like local league or a regional, like that's so different than everything that you would do. It's
I want to flex so hard, bring this to my table and be like, okay, roll to go first, and they pull out their die, and I'm like, no, 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 no. And then you roll your little ball down the middle.
Would you like the silver lining or the black circle?
Never done this before. Yeah. Somebody's got to do that and take a picture of it or film it at a regional. That'd be great.
It's gonna be I believe his name is Matthew, the boy, the guy that we talked about several weeks ago who brought the jumbo cards
Yes.
and registered. That's gonna be him. I already know it.
That's excellent. Okay.
It's a great choice. But Sean, you know, somebody may have been able, if they got it early, to rock that stuff over at the Bochum regionals that happened over the weekend. There were two big regionals that happened, Bochum regionals and Knoxville. Bochum had 767 players, Sean. But looking at this, was there anything that you really like or that you see that you want to mention real quick?
I mean, I will say I think it's worth. I don't know how this Lugia list, because Lugia, for those of you, spoiler alert, Lugia won both tournaments that we're going to talk about today.
Lugia is good, yeah.
Lugia is good if you didn't know. So I want to take a quick peek at this, get a sense of like what it's rocking relative to the other Lugia lists that we're going to see.
It's a little bit different, I would say.
It is. It has got a pretty hefty electric package in this.
Yes.
So on this list, you've got one Vikavolt V, which, you know,
it's already out of the norm.
Yeah, definitely odd. I mean, I guess you can get it powered up pretty easy. It's going to hit for weakness against, you know, opposing Lugias if you need. So like I see the value in it. I do wonder though, like there's got to be interesting situations like when do you bring out the Vikavolt versus when do you bring out, like when do you attack with one versus the other? You know what I mean? Like maybe you know, it's actually a pretty wild lock that you can get on. If you go first and on your second turn you can get out a Vikavolt, put 2 energy onto it, and then stop the opposing Lugia V-Star player from playing any of the discard cards or search cards to find the pieces. And if you can basically turn off their ability to get into their Lugia V-Star, that's a pretty good position to put yourself in.
And not to mention, there are plenty of other decks like Regigigas, Lost Zone Box, things like that that really count on stuff like item cards and stuff like that. Mew Genesect as well. So I mean, just there's a lot of matchups where you can really capitalize on Vikavolt in plenty of different ways. I mean, Vikavolt, I mean, like you were saying, it's very easy to power up. You
Mhm.
can just go in and just one shot a Lugia, right? With that second attack just out of the blue as one of your attackers.
Yeah, if you really wanted, that would be like, so say your opponent has one Lugia, some other bench sitter, and they're waiting on their turn to, like, Evo up, and they're not thinking there's going to be an electric Pokemon coming at them for lethal necessarily.
Hmm.
And then you could just rock up, throw that Vikavolt V down and be like, you don't have any Lugias, and I'm not going to let you get any for the rest of the game. That's pretty wild.
I mean, it's pretty cool. And it has that Vikavolt package that we've been seeing the Vikavolt item lock decks with the Zapdos in it, right? The Zapdos that increases damage by 10, got a couple speed lightnings in there. It's interesting. They fit the Vikavolt and the Zapdos, but still kept the Lost Vacuum.
I mean, I feel like the Lost Vacuum is so necessary, especially because they're only running one stadium, which
Yeah.
which is, I think, a risk to only run the one stadium and the one vacuum, because if for whatever reason you don't find either of those cards, because I'm looking at the deck right now, and
You're
the
playing
only
Skyla.
yeah, you got one, but that's it. You've got one Skyla, so like, oh, I guess you've got the Pumpkaboo as well. So there's three ways to get rid of a stadium potentially, but as we'll see in Knoxville regionals, one of those ways is not particularly useful. Anywho, but yeah,
Interesting.
any other decks from Bochum that caught your eye, Jake?
I will say not necessarily. I mean, Lugia took up 33% of the meta share, dominant as always in terms of the successful decks in the Limitless page. Lost Box being second with about 20%. There was a cool, you were bringing this up now, Zacian V-Star deck that appeared in the event. I believe I remember seeing this on stream and got people really excited. I believe this is 29th place Luke Kirkham, right, Sean?
Yes, it is, I believe. Yeah, it was top 32. So I was just scrolling down and I saw, Limitless just had like a Zacian, Pokemon like little thing image. And I was like, it's been 84 years, Jake, since I've seen a Zacian deck.
I know. I mean, it's not very often that we see a card like Zacian V go so high at the beginning of its release to so far down. I mean, it's been, like you were saying, it's been 84 years. It's been like a year since we've seriously heard about it, right? Like the last peak that we've heard is Dialga V Star. Right, and that's just once every blue moon. But this is the Zacian V-Star deck that plays one of the new Zamazentas from, I believe, Crown Zenith is when it came from, the Retaliate one. The Zacian V-Star, if you do not remember, has that V-Star power that does 310 damage. It's got the 310 damage on the V-Star power, and then also the 200 damage regular attack that isn't affected by weakness, resistance, or by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So two pretty good attacks, I will say, for a deck that has Metal Saucers, Rhyhons, plenty of ways to get multiple energies on in a single turn.
Now, what's interesting about that first attack, the 200, now, I guess it doesn't have any special energy, so it doesn't matter. I was trying to think of like what the third, like by any effects. Are there any Pokemon that would be particularly useful for? Like, I can't.
I'm trying to
of
think.
any.
There's no.
It's not a basic, so Flying Pikachu doesn't really, stop it. So
Well, that's an effect. Oh, it says basic Pokemon, doesn't it? No, it just
exactly.
says active Pokemon.
Oh, does
So
it?
but Zacian V-Star is not a basic. You're
Yeah,
right. That's what you mean by that. So Pikachu, Flying Pikachu VMAX
doesn't do
doesn't
anything
necessarily. What about
anyways.
like Regice?
Maybe. Yeah, I wonder if this could get through a Regice. Another reason to play this. Although if you're teching for Regis, don't get me wrong, Regis is a good deck, but you don't need a tech for it.
Rahul Reddy, back-to-back top fours, I believe it
I
was, or
mean,
top eights or something with
sure,
Reginald.
sure, but like Reggie's is only what at most 10% of a meta, maybe less.
Look, I mean, if you're not beating Reggie's, it might be tough out there. Reggie's a popular deck. It's super cheap. We've talked about it.
It's true, but I don't know. I think this one's interesting. I'm sure there are reasons why he didn't choose to put an Oranguru in this list, but Oranguru is like the OG best bud of Zacian.
Well, I mean, think about your bench and what you got. You got
That's true.
Zacian, probably two of them. You've got a Mew or two, right? You've got scoop up nets and air balloons and cross switchers in there. You've got Radiant Greninja on the bench.
Yeah,
You've
maybe you just
got,
don't have the
the
space.
Zigzagoon for the peeing. Yeah, but I bet you just don't have the space for the Oranguru.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I mean, the Intrepid Sword, you're probably more concerned just about drawing cards in general than really emphasizing on getting the energy.
Okay, another question then, Jake. And I'm gonna throw another one out at you. Why a choice belt and no rusty sword?
Because of Drapion?
Does Drapion?
Maybe? Or
You don't need the
Retaliate.
extra damage.
Retaliate Zamazenta, right? That little guy right
220
there.
Is 250. Is that doing it for you? Is that all you
I
needed?
think 230. I mean, what is Duraludon? Duraludon V? Is it 230 plus the ability, which is another 30?
Well,
And
it's
so
220
Retaliate,
plus, 30, 250.
well, Retaliate with the choice belt then would be 250 right there.
Yeah, but I don't care about 250. That only works after your opponent's one of your Pokemon has been knocked out. So that means they're probably up into their VMAX already.
Okay, well, is there a VMAX with 270? What's Lugia at?
270 is 270 works.
So yeah, because you've got Retaliate, which is 120, Choice Belt is
Yes.
250, and then two Zigzagoons is boom. You got scoop up nets in there.
How much extra damage does Rusty Sword get you though?
It's the same. It's just
Is it
30.
30? Is it
right?
just 30?
I'm pretty sure it's just 30.
Okay, yeah, never mind. Yeah,
Yeah, Choice
Belt
Belt
better.
just works better. Choice Belt's just
Yeah.
better all the time, Sean.
I'm out
Jeez.
here trying to make it themed. Silly
It's
me.
already themed. You got a Zacian and a Zacian V-Star. That's all you need in this, Sean. But anything else you want to talk about before we move on?
No, nothing else particular from this event. So we
I will
can,
say
I think,
the
move
only
on.
thing.
Yeah.
I will say the only thing is 46. There's a
all the way down.
Vikavolt deck that's playing a little bit more than just Vikavolt. It's got Reggie Alecki VMAX in it. I like Reggie
my.
Alecki VMAX. I want to play it with Miraidon and Vikavolt and stuff like that. Reggie Alecki VMAX, if you do not know, is a VMAX Pokemon. It's got two things on it that you should know. Well, three things, really. It's got free retreat. That's one thing. The second thing is the attack, lightning, colorless, 220 damage during your next turn. This Pokemon can attack, whatever. Doesn't matter. We don't care about that too much. The biggest thing is the ability Transitor. Your basic lightning Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So your Vikavolt, if you get a couple Regieleki VMAXs, they're really packing a punch, Sean.
Yeah, that puts you at 50 and 80. And then maybe 110. So 220. And they can't use items with weakness.
Yeah, and with something like maybe a choice belt that's in this list, right? You can really get in there, and it plays the Melanie engine just like the other Vikavolt decks. So getting that turn one lightning attack is very easy. Paralyzing Bolt. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, no, it's really clever. And maybe with the Raikou as well. Like, if you're giving yourself an extra 30, even if they're not weak to lightning, if you've got that full bench, like that might be all you really need. Because what does that cap out at? 220, right? Basic.
Mm-hmm.
So
I believe so.
Out at 220 if you've got full benches on each side. Add 30, that's 250. Add 30 more with the choice belt, you got 280. That knocks out almost all V-Stars.
Yeah, I mean, it's heavy hitting, and I like Regieleki. So this is the deck that I'm playing now.
Yes. Friendship with Lunatone Solrock ended.
Now my best friend is Regieleki VMAX Sean. But You may pick a different best friend from the Knoxville regional, Sean. There was the first place finisher, Andrew Hedrick, back to back
Yep.
championships. I don't know if there was too much different with their deck than before, to be honest. I mean, it's Lugia. Everybody's basically playing the same 60.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was anything in particular that this deck ran that I thought was interesting. Um, we may have talked about it, but I think the one of Irida is interesting in the deck.
Yes, I think we've talked about that one.
Yeah, I do like it because like being able to go get any of the items that you might need can
Mhm.
guarantee you an Ultra Ball, getting rid of those Archeops to go grab the Lugia, and you can also grab yourself the, I don't know, Manaphy maybe, or a Luminion, whatever, for a next turn, I guess. Um, yeah.
I would say it was interesting, Sean, but the second place deck,
Oh my
you're not gonna
gosh.
like this. You're not gonna
I
like this,
watched I
Sean.
watched some of that match.
It is Eternatus VMAX Wheezing. Sean's favorite
Ugh.
card, Eternatus VMAX, is back. Second place in this. Sean, why don't you tell me about this deck?
Okay. So this is a control deck. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna call it what it is. It's a control deck. It's a control deck that can hit hard if it needs to, but for the most part, control. So what Galarian Wheezing is really the key card in this deck. What that does, if you don't remember, I don't blame you. It has the ability neutralizing gas. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's Pokemon in play have no abilities except neutralizing gas. So basically, you can one-sided turn off all of your opponent's abilities. That's on the field. I guess if there was ever one printed in the graveyard or discard, if there was anything in your hand. So like anything that you play down from your hand, no abilities. Now I will
Hmm.
say, this does not turn off Forest Seal Stone, any of those, because that is not an ability on a Pokemon. So important to know, if you face one of these in your locals, your Forest Seal Stone should still be good to go. But on top of turning off all of those abilities, because the problem here is you have to keep this little 130 damage dude in the active.
Hmm.
You have severe poison for 1 darkness energy. Your opponent's active is now poisoned. Put 4 damage counters instead of 1 on that Pokemon during Pokemon checkup. So the way that this deck typically works, I would imagine, is you want to stop your opponent's abilities, which are a lot of decks out there, right? Mew can't draw cards. Lugia can't V-Star, can't get the Archeops, can't power up any of the energy that is needed.
Reggie
Lost
can't do any of the
Reggie can't
energies.
do anything. Reggie's just chilling.
Reggie is manually attaching and drawing
Lost Box is just like sitting on, like you're just basically waiting
for
for your
Colress. Yeah,
Colress,
you're
right?
just waiting for Colress.
Yeah, and if you don't have a Colress, well, you just got a bunch of little weaklings that are going to die real quick.
Hmm.
So it's actually a really interesting meta call. And I mean, obviously, this player got to second place, so it did really well. But then you can spread some damage around with the Zigzagoons, some pings. And Jake, what does that Radiant Hisuian Sneasler do?
The Radiant Hisuian Sneasler, basic 130 HP dark Pokemon, has two different things. One of them is more important than the other, I feel like. The ability, Poison Peak. During Pokemon Checkup, put 2 more damage counters on your opponent's poisoned Pokemon. So essentially, with your Galarian Weezing's attack of putting 4 damage counters every checkup phase, now with this Radiant Hisuian Sneasler, you're doing 6. So 60, 180, 240, or I'm sorry, 60,
6120.
120, 180, 240 in just 4 turns, 2 of your turns. So can do a lot of damage. Also with, Galarian Weezing decks, sure, you may not get your opponent stuck in the active to get more than 4 damage counters on, or
Mhm.
8. You might not ever reach that 240 because of damage. But here's the big thing about Galarian Wheezing. It can be just enough damage for something like Eternatus VMAX to come in and clean up, take a knockout. That's the big thing about this deck, I feel like.
Yeah. And the one thing that is important to consider with this deck, we talked about how good Aerodactyl V-Star is, because if you
Hmm.
can get that V-Star attack off before they're able to obviously use any of their stuff, it can be really debilitating. This can be equally debilitating because of Boost Shake.
Well,
So,
two things, Boost Shake and Ascension on
oh,
Coughing.
yes, that's right. So so Ascension on Coughing, search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon, put it onto it and evolve it, then shuffle. So if you're going second, you just attach a Dark Energy to a Coughing, use the attack, he turns into Wheezing, and before your opponent even knows it, they can't do anything.
Hmm.
And then vice versa, if you are lucky enough to go first and you can find this one of Boost Shake, well, then on turn 1, you can play that, Boost Shake, get your Galarian Wheezing out to evolve one of your Coughings, and that ends your turn, but it doesn't matter. You've achieved your goal.
Yeah, you've got your Wheezing out before your opponent can really do anything.
Yeah. So this deck can certainly be really, really nasty. You're also playing 3 Temple of Sinnohs. So the thing that I see with this deck, it was clearly designed to counter Lugia specifically.
I mean, there's a ton of special energy in the format right now, right? Mew's playing double turbos, right? Lugia is throwing out those energies. Even something like Vikavolt. Vikavolt we just showed earlier, having lightning energies attached to it. There's a lot of different options out there that people can do.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, though, it's a pretty straightforward deck. You have a lot of Marnies and Judges.
Hmm.
So the idea there is that your opponent you never want them to be able to really plan out their turn, because any control deck, if you can force your opponent to constantly, shuffle things back into their deck and not be able to plan for turns ahead, because against control, you really want to make it difficult for them. And that Judge and Marnie are great for that. A few bosses in Serena to get your opponent's less optimal Pokemon stuck in the active, maybe. Yeah, it's definitely that. This is a cool deck, Jake.
Sean, a deck that made a little bit more noise, though,
Oh, okay.
than the
More noise.
Eternatus deck. Go to Andrew Mahone or Tricky Jim's 13th place Mew VMAX deck. And I want you to tell me what makes it so different than all the other ones.
Oh my lord. Okay. I mean, one of these things is not like the other.
Well, there's 3 of those things are not like the others.
Well, sure. Yeah. For those of you who can't see what I'm saying and are listening to this podcast, 1, thank you. 2, I'm seeing a Flying Pikachu V and VMAX with 1 Speed Lightning Energy in this deck. I
Yeah.
what?
I mean, this is really, really cool because, you have these decks that have these basic Pokemon that can just wonk you, right? Mew constantly gets beat by something like Drapion, correct?
I mean,
And
yeah.
these Lost Box decks or these random decks just throwing in a single Drapion and winning the matchup. Well, what if you could just put a Flying Pikachu VMAX in there and you can say, okay, throw your Drapion out there. It's not going to hit me.
I mean,
And you can kind of sway a matchup a little bit more.
I will say it is a big deal to if you are up against a Reggie's or a Lost Box, like one of those decks that doesn't play any non-basics,
Mm-hmm.
getting the Flying Pikachu out, once you realize what's going on, if you can get that Flying Pikachu and get it powered up quickly enough with a Forest Seal Stone to go grab your Speed Lightning, if you can manage that, then yeah,
It's literally like an auto win.
it can be. You have to, I will say, anybody who's thinking about playing this deck, you really have to be smart about it, because if you just run your game plan as normal, throw a Mew down, throw a few Genesects down, you have lost. Because the only way that it works is that you have to assume your opponent doesn't have a way to take 6 prizes around your Pikachu.
Or do like a boss type play, right? Because
Oh,
if
true,
Flying
yeah.
Pikachu VMAX leaves the active, the max balloon effect leaves the Flying Pikachu. So
Exactly. So if they escape rope boss, super annoying. But again, that requires them to do that and have enough to knock out the Flying Pikachu, which, is a beefy boy.
he's 310 HP, just like Mew.
That's right. That's right. He's, it's chunky. But I mean, hey, props to Andrew. I mean, getting, top 16 with this deck, clearly he knew something that nobody else did with Mew.
It was him who placed 13th overall, and Jesse Parker placed 36th
Oh
with the
my.
same exact 60. And those are two buds that play together all the time, test with each other, a part of the Tricky Gym community over in Ohio. And Knoxville had over 1,100 players, Sean. So
Oh my
two of
gosh.
these bad boys in top 50 is a big deal in my opinion. But if you could also, that wasn't the only deck,
Yeah.
that made a ton of noise. 22nd place, another Mew VMAX deck. There was another partner that Mew VMAX got that was very unconventional that was played. Sean, what are they?
Oh, there's 2 of them here. One is a Fusion Strike Dreepy. It's for 1 psychic energy, does 10 damage. During your opponent's deck's turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. Okay, I mean, I guess it's Mew control.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense because you can stall out a lot of people, right? With that Dreepy, you have all these different switch effects in the format, and you got people running away at times to be able to
Mhm.
maybe do a Comfey, or maybe to get a different Reggie in the active, or things of that nature, or just retreating in general. And so this Dreepy can really capitalize, really slow the game down to the opponent. But yeah.
I'm looking at the other card here, which is Pidgeot V. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may shuffle it and all attached cards into your deck.
Think about all the control decks that have come around lately, Sean.
I mean, there are some. It's a good option if you're worried about
It is a
control.
one card inclusion in a deck that can probably sacrifice a card to be able to beat control.
I mean, I will say, Jake, you say beat. However, if you're really playing control right, all you got to do is manage to get through enough of your deck to then recycle a 4th path to the peak to get rid of their, whatever the last stadium is.
But see here on Flight Surf. Oh wait, never mind. Just kidding. I thought it was like Lugia where it was discard a stadium, but it's
No.
not.
Yeah.
Never
So
mind.
that's why I'm like, it's good.
But here's the thing as well, like if you get to that point, like
Mhm.
right, a lot of, as someone who did play control at times, you game plan and you know what you're supposed to do in the specific matchups, right? Because you counter the meta, you counter the
True.
game plan, and usually a lot of times you lose to the more random things, right? Because you're not prepared for that, right? You can only condition yourself to play against so many different decks. So if you just throw off your opponent a little bit on control with the Dreepy or the Pidgeot, right, that may just be enough to maybe get a win, but also maybe force the tie.
That's fair. Yeah, if you draw the game out long enough and you can end up with a tie in a game you would normally lose, that's
Not
totally fair.
necessarily, and not necessarily slow playing,
No,
like not
no, but
taking 30 seconds per action, but just, playing the game normally, but, control takes a long time to play. So,
yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up though is so Lugia did make up, I think it was at like 35% of day 2 or something. A pretty
the statistics say 33.33%.
Okay, so a third, 1 out of every 3 decks in day 2 was Lugia. However, if we
Mhm.
look at the top 8, there are only 2 Lugia decks in the entirety of the top 8, which is it's quite impressive. This is actually a really wild spread of decks in top 8, and I just wanted to point out we have 2 Lugias. We have that Eternatus Wheezing. We have, Rahul in third place with Reggie's. You've got a Lost Box Rayquaza, no surprise. But then you've got Piper Lapine's Control Palkia, which is weird.
Well, I think control is somewhat of a strong word.
It is. It is strong, but like there's a control-ish Palkia. And then they've got an Arceus Duraludon and a Vikavolt, an item lock Vikavolt. So, but the reason I say it's kind of like a control Palkia, when Piper talked about the deck, she did talk about it as being like, hey, in a lot of matchups, you do play it as a control-y deck because you have 2 Articunos and 1 of the Ice Cues.
It's like when like Jake Gearhart and those people were playing it like a month or 2 ago.
Yep, exactly. So the idea here is, your opponents aren't going to be playing in most decks, aren't going to be playing a lot of switching cards. Unless you're in against Lost Box. Lugia doesn't play a lot of switching cards, so you're going to paralyze your opponent's Pokemon. You're going to make it so that all basic Pokemon damage is prevented with the Ice Cube. And then the Wash Energy just stops Lost Box in its tracks. And then over the course of a game, you're using the Quick Shooting Inteleon to put damage counters around the board, which is exactly in the game that I watched, one of the games, that's exactly what you're doing in order to control the game. So you're not really control in the sense of you're trying to get them to deck out.
You're not standard Wojcik control,
Exactly.
You're more like, I'm going to run this game and how it is played. Your pace is controlled by me, things of that nature.
2005 Detroit Pistons defense. That's what this deck is.
Sure, Sean.
Yep.
It's sports ball.
Sports
Woo.
ball. But yeah, I mean, all in all, when I look at this top 8, I'm actually quite surprised. Like it's interesting when one deck is such a big part of the meta. And don't get me wrong, Lugia is still a great deck. It won the tournament, right? But it's interesting to see how many different counters are coming out of the woodworks. And I don't know. My thought here is, again, I think this is like, these are some of the best times in Pokemon is when the format is so large. Like there's so many cards in the card pool that it's possible to have this many different kinds of decks do well. So I guess, as boring as you might think a format this long might be, enjoy it because in a month and a half, you'll be back down to like, a year and a half's worth of cards and 3 decks in the format, probably.
I will say 60th place, Javier Chinchilla, Raikou, Regieleki VMAX. Love it. Shout out to that. Love me some Regieleki.
Oh my gosh. Jake, is there anything else, or is this going to be it for the week?
I will say there was a lot of Vikavolt within the top 26. And I mean, there was one in the top 8 being Alex Szymanski, but you have another one at 17th, another one at 19th, 21st, 25th, and 26th in there. And then you got a couple other ones within the top 50 at 50th and 44th. So Vikavolt, I mean, starting to get some strong showings, I would say. I think that's one of the decks that's like more on the rise. It may not be a tournament winning deck, right? But there's so much Lugia in the format and so many things that just depend on item cards that, this might be an interesting deck to pick up. I will say Alex Szymanski had our favorite Aerodactyl V-Star in it.
Oh, nice. I mean, I will say, like, yeah, to your point about if you're going to a tournament being like, I just want to do well, and you feel like you understand the format, decks like Vikavolt, even maybe the Galarian Wheezing deck, although I think that one, it's so specific that, I could imagine people being able to figure out a way around it. But things like Vikavolt are really good picks if you're like, I just want to do well, get points. If you're grinding for a World's Invite.
I would say if you want points, you go with like Lugia.
I mean, but this is the thing. If you feel like you are a skilled and knowledgeable player.
Oh, if you know like the metagame in and out, you're playing all the time, you're playing every day, then yeah, your more counter decks like Vikavolt and stuff like that are probably better to play for you. And you could probably, I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like you either do really, really bad or you do really, really well. There's no in between. There's no middle.
Yep. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you play Lugia, you're going to be up against a third of the field playing the same deck as you. And the question becomes, A, do I feel lucky? And then B, do I feel like I'm a better Lugia player than the majority of the other Lugia players? Which, maybe you are. But Vikavolt, it's like, okay, I can counter the best deck in the format, the most played deck in the format. And, I just have to know this deck well enough to know how it does against the rest of the field. And I can probably pilot it to points or maybe even a day 2. I don't know. That's some of the, if you're not going for a win, that's definitely some of the math that comes in.
It's some interesting stuff that's happening in the Pokemon trading card game. But Sean, is there anything else that you want to talk about here before we wrap up for the week?
No, nothing else this week, Jake. We got to start taking a look at the next set though, and then start taking a look at rotation, because that's coming up.
It's coming up. Pre-release events are happening in about 2 weeks from now, so mark your calendars. I'm going to try to go to one, to be honest, because that's kind of close to our college's spring break.
Nice.
So a lot of our teams will be on the road and stuff. So I'm going to try to go to one, maybe pull the full art Miraidon VMAX or VEX, whatever it is.
The EX
I'm going to
Max.
try to get I'm going to try to get a full art supporter and the full art EX character art rare, whatever it is, the cool things, in there. And we'll give it to you as they come here on the Metapop Podcast. Pokemon Podcast revolves around the evolving meta. Have a good week.